what I wanted to talk about next was something interesting to me. You guys already know I had a music server called Subsonic. What is Subsonic? Maybe might be the better question first. Now, it's basically just a little program you run on your computer, and you forward a port to it, and it allows you with the right music clients, and I think it can do video and other odds and ends too, that allow you to connect to your home server and access the music and stream to your music player. There's like PC clients as well and stuff. I use it almost exclusively for Android. So let's say I got my server here on that port 4040. That's because the service is running here on my Subsonic server that I'm calling it virtual machine, which is just Windows running that particular software. It has a web interface that you can then log in and configure and stuff. Now here is where I hit a problem and why I'm bringing this up in the first place. This is not trying to show off anything, but right here you need to specify some kind of folder to even share in the first place, and then give permissions and other odds and ends. And I found out that it does not support streaming, or rather sharing folders over the network. In other words, I couldn't just type in or, do the network share folder structure and put that in here, and it would go and pull it off the NAS, so to speak. Nope, it would not work. It does not support it. So at first what I did was, because it's a test server environment, I simply made a server or a virtual disk so that I could just get the server working and test it. And that's that 175 gigabyte hard disk, and then it's got a copy of my music. And then that's mounted on here, and in this case, it was assigned to letter I, and it's got all my music in there. And then I can simply point to it, right? Great. Except now I have another copy of the music, and how is that going to scale, and this and that, and a couple other issues. And the biggest issue is I want my storage to be centralized. In other words, that NAT Windows server that I'm using as a NAT, whatever you want to think of it. I'm probably misusing terms and people are cringing. I'm sorry. The server I'm using as a NAT should be the one that controls that centralized thing. Yes, I can network share off of just the Subsonic machine and so on, but I don't want to start, because that music needs to be centralized along with my main database of files, whether it's my backups or anything else. And I hit a snag because it's like, well, how do I have a copy? I mean, I could make a second virtual hard drive and keep it synchronized, but now I have an extra copy, and I don't think it's like a redundant backup benefit if it's still on the same system of drives, and it just doesn't make sense. In comes the VMFS6 file structure. I don't know why I clicked that. The data store that uses the VMFS file structure has one amazing benefit, at least, that gives me a layer of functionality that'll make this work, that I could not recreate physically necessarily in the same way. So like when I browse my files, oh wait, I am browsing my files. For some reason I was expecting a pop-up. here in the NAS server, my virtual disks, there's the music collection. It's just got its own dedicated, in this case, intentionally separate, but it's still part of the same collective. Like, this is what's in charge, the NAS server. And then we had the test volume, or virtual disk, right? So the music is in here, on this hard drive, essentially. However, I can't share the contents of it over the network in a way that Subsonic would be able to see it. So yeah, I could have had a copy of it in here. I only have the one virtual disk, which is the OS. So I found out the benefit that VMFS6 gave, I don't know if it's compatible with older versions or not, whatever, is when you right-click, and this is only in the vSphere interface, it feels like, the vCenter stuff. If I made it through, like, the workspace, so we create a machine through there, I wouldn't have the extra options. So I go to Edit Settings, right? Now, when you have a new hard drive, you want to make one and so on, right? You would go through the new disk or add disk. And there's a magical little option in here. And the machine has to be powered off to make, like, changes to that. But it is... yeah, sharing. Now, this is the 200 gig drive. It defaults to no sharing for any hard drive. It looks like it's being listed as other disks in this case. I don't know why. Oh, well, maybe because of the sharing thing. But yeah, see here, there's the hard disk number 3. This is the industrial disk. And under sharing, I selected multi-writer. And if the machine was off, I could change it here as well. So let me just show you what it would look like. New hard disk for a moment. And since it's not mounted yet, I can specify on a brand new one, right? Sharing, boom. Multi-writer. That's what I would do. And what this option does is it allows you to mount a virtual hard drive on multiple virtual machines at the same time. And I believe any changes made in one will be applied, like the file system is designed for being able to work with that specifically on top of everything else that it does. So yeah, I can't share the files over the network to the music server, but the Subsonic server itself has, right there, hard disk number 2, 175. Same thing, it's the same server industrial volume thing, and I think I had to select the sharing thing in here as well when I added it as an existing disk. So this industrial.vmdk is mounted twice in 2 different machines. Both machines have access to this hard drive at the same time, is what that means. And that's fantastic. So it gave me a whole different way to be able to access it without having to do it over the network. And I think this will be even more interesting down the line when I start digging deeper into some of the networking stuff. Because I have the second router I set up for hosting servers and things. If, let's say, I wanted to give a friend a virtual machine to play with, I don't want him to have access to my entire network, right? It should just have the internet, and that's it. So my solution was to make a router and so on, and then hide the rest of the network LAN from that subnet. And I have it set up like that, and it's been working. I haven't tested all of it, and I think I've recorded some of that. There's more to follow up on still once I try and figure out port forwarding. in that regard. But if I was to have a server that cannot see the network shares with that network configuration, but I was in a scenario where I needed it or wanted it to have access to some network disk, this would be a potential way of creating a link into it. So I think there's some interesting potential with this system. So I'm going to deploy, I believe, once I have all my stuff, I'm going to just make a NAS out of a virtual disk. And probably not the best idea, but we'll see. I mean, this is how I learn. We'll see how it works and where it goes from there. I mean, that's how this is how I work, right?